What's going on, Tar Heels? Jeff with the Hill Brothers, back with another edition Tar Heel Olympic Spotlight. So y'all, hope everybody had a good week. As always, NCAA. This episode, there's a lot of NCAA action that we'll talk about for the winter sports. As again said last week, they're all winding down. NCAA action with a lot of those few seasons wrapped up. First things first, as usual, go with rankings and things like that came out, and some of the honors and preseason type stuff, or not preseason, but weekly honors that come out from the ACC on some things, and just some a few other random little bits of news that I'll always throw in there for the sports. First of all, as usual, Monday, Tuesday, or Monday and Tuesday are really poll days, ranking days for things. Gymnastics, road to nationals. We'll talk about ACCs with this week. NCAA's are coming up. Qualifiers for the NCAA's are based off the road to national polls and the national qualifying scores, the NQSs. Gymnastics did fall 4 spots in last week's, this past week's latest gymnastics rankings from road to nationals. Fell 4 spots to number 22. Women's lacrosse holding strong at number 1 in the IWLCA Division I coaches poll. Women's basketball poll still top 25, AP top 25. I think it was, last week was the final regular season. This one came out this week. I'm not quite sure why this one comes out. It's kind of, tournament stuff going on now, NCAA tournament stuff going on now, which we'll talk about. There was action in Carmichael on that. Women's basketball did remain number 15 in the AP top 25 poll, though, that came out on this past Monday. Men's lacrosse actually moved up 1 spot to number 5 in the USILA Division I men's coaches poll. That's all for Monday. So then Tuesday rolls around on poll stuff. Women's tennis, which last week the last week's poll, they fell 1 spot from 3 to 4, despite not losing. Still down 2 spots again now, to number 6 now in the ITA Division I women's collegiate tennis team rankings. I guess we're not winning big enough. I don't know. Not sure what the deal is there. There actually was no women's tennis this past week. If I remember correctly. Did have men's tennis. Yeah, but no women's tennis this past week. They were off. Spring break, actually. It was spring break for students for Carolina. I think my daughter said she saw. My daughter follows, and I've talked about her, and Anna Fry's her favorite player. Even before Anna got to college, she's liked Anna Fry, just I guess for the TikTok stuff and all Instagram and stuff she posts. But so she had already liked her, already knew who she was when she came to Carolina, which I've said before. When Anna committed, she was so excited. She said something about, we were talking about the other day, actually walking to baseball. We were walking Friday from down Stadium Drive from women's basketball from the NCAA game against Western Illinois to the Bosch for baseball. And she was saying, we were talking about tennis, and I said something about men's tennis at the time. Men's tennis was playing in Chapel Hill. And I was like, women's tennis, I don't think is playing anywhere. And she goes, no. She said something about Anna had posted something. She was somewhere, I think in the Caribbean, maybe. But anyway, interesting side note. Long and short of it, women's tennis did not play this week. So when we get to action, you won't see those in there. They will be coming up this coming week, though, when we talk about the upcoming stuff. Individual rankings. This is one of those weeks. This past week was one of those weeks where the singles and doubles rankings do come out for men's and women's. Reese Brantmeyer still holding in the top few, but she fell from 2 to 3. And she did she fell the previous one. She fell from 1 to 2 because she did lose, even though Carolina did not lose as a team. Reese did get upset in her singles match a few weeks ago. But again, she fell from 2 to 3 this past week. Again, she didn't lose, but rankings are funny things, I guess. Obi Kajura, number 7, Tatum Evans, 26, Alanis Hamilton, number 95, and Anna Fry, 113. So those are the singles rankings for women. Doubles, the new doubles rankings. The team of Reese and Alanis Hamilton, number 5. Obi and Susanna Maltby are in at 6, and the only other doubles team in is number 68, Mary Grace Renard and Alana Boyce. Then the men, we talked about last week, men had one of those weeks, where men's tennis had one of those weeks where they were off, and I mean not off as in didn't play, but off as in just didn't really play well. Had fought back on a few of them, on a few of the in the matches, in their individual matches, but lost 2. So they did fall 4 spots from 65 to number 69 in the ITA Division 1 men's team rankings. Do have a few men that are in the singles rankings as well as one doubles team. So Rowan Jones is number 54 ranked singles player. Niels Rachu in at 120 as far as singles go. And then doubles, the only doubles team in there was in at number 20, 20th ranked doubles team of Anthony Wright and Rowan Jones. So you notice those are climbing. We're seeing that, we're seeing the double, especially on the double side of things. Anthony and Rowan had a big upset. Had a big upset last week in one of the matches. It was one of the bright spots we had last week for men's tennis. The new rowing poll did come out. The Pocock CRCA poll. Again, kind of rehashing, flashing back a little bit. We ended last season ranked 25th. The preseason poll came out this year. We weren't in it. Got our first action of the rowing season, of the spring season. Last week we talked about in Tennessee. And we did really well. Remember, I talked about we did really well. If you weren't listening, if you didn't listen, and go back and listen to it. But if you didn't, we did do really well. We had some firsts and seconds, and wound up actually entering the poll. The new poll that came out this week entered the poll at number 20. So, strong showing there. Obviously rewarded in the polls. We'll talk about it coming up, but rowing will be back in action this coming week. So we'll get that towards the end. And then the last thing for the rankings, men's and women's golf, the new Clip Scoreboard National Collegiate Golf Rankings came out. The women moved up 1 spot to number 12. And they were actually finished off a tournament this past week that we'll talk about. And the men stayed put at number 17, and they'll be in action this coming week. So we'll talk about, again, where they're going to be when we talk about the upcoming schedule. So that's it for the ranking stuff. Now, Monday, ACC Gymnastics Championships, the seeding and the schedules came out. There's only 6 teams in gymnastics in the ACC. We got Stanford, we got Cal, Clemson State, Carolina, and Pitt. So the rankings went in just the order I read them. Stanford number 1, coming in number 1 seed in the tournament. Cal the 2nd, Clemson the 3rd, State the 4th, us the 5th, and Pitt the 6th. So what happens is the way they'll do the tournament, and we'll talk about, the ACC Gymnastics Championships did take place on Saturday, this past Saturday. So we'll talk about it later. But what they do, just kind of setting the table for that for you. What they do is the 5th and 6th teams, 5th and 6th seeded teams, have a dual meet first, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, the top 4 seeds. Then later on in the day, actually in the evening, I think the women's, the 5 and 6 started at like 2:30, and the quad meet with the top 4 seeds started like 7. That's much apropos of nothing for the conversation, but just the times were in my head, so I kicked them out there. So you get 5 and 6 go, and then the top 4 seeds go in a quad meet later, And what they do is just they take the scores. Even though you went 5 and 6, you get your score. Your score is your score, and then after the top four seeds compete later on in the day, they take their scores, and that's how it comes out. And it just goes down the line on how everything is. So we'll talk about that when we get to it a little bit in a few in the stuff, but that's how that goes. And just I mentioned when I was talking about rankings, I mentioned the NQS scores, the national qualifying scores, and that really is what the Road to Nationals poll is. The rankings, the Road to National is not a poll. The Road to National NCAA gymnastics rankings is based off of it's ranked teams off qualifying scores. So going into the week, we were number 22 there, and I talked about before. Basically, it's just an average of your scores. But there's a little bit of twist to it. So what it does, and just so you understand, it'll take your 6 best regular season meet scores. And of those, 3 must be away meets. Out of those 6, the highest scores eliminated, the remaining 5 scores are averaged. That gives you your NQS score, your national qualifying score. That determines the seeds. It determined the seeds, obviously, for the ACC stuff. It will also determine the seeds for the NCAA gymnastics regional competition, which is not this coming week, but is going to be, I think it runs, I'll mention it later, but I think it runs April 1st through 5th is what that is, 1st through 5th or 1st through 4th. We'll cover that when we hit the gymnastics stuff. Some news out of men's soccer. Talked about it on the competition side, the spring exhibition type schedule, as I would call it. The Carolina Cup's been going on. We've been doing really well in that. Remember, I also talked about last week, we had the number 1 transfer class coming in, 4 players coming in to Carolina this upcoming season. But we did announce, in addition to the coaching staff, Carolina alum, men's soccer alum, Michael Callahan has been added to the coaching staff by coach, by the coach. So sorry, lost my mind for a minute. Yeah. So Michael Callahan back in Chapel Hill. He spent the last 4 seasons as an assistant at George Mason. And it was actually helped them through one of the more successful stretches they've had in their program history. So good to have Coach Callahan back. Former All-American midfielder here at Carolina, was a captain, and actually was on the 2008 national championship led us to the 2008 national championship game, and got All-American honors as well as academic All-American honors while he was at Carolina. Big addition to the staff. So can't wait for that to show up on the field, and obviously with improvement in play like that. We talked about last season was a little iffy for both soccer teams. This past season wasn't the best, but future's there. Future looks bright still with recruits and transfer class coming in. So we'll talk about it when it rolls around again next season. Tuesday, women's basketball commit signee, actually, Kate Harpering was named the Naismith Girls High School Player of the Year. So big time award for Kate. I know I've mentioned it before. Daughter of Georgia Tech, of former Georgia Tech basketball player Matt Harpering. Man, it's going to be so good to see Kate. This is going to be so good to see Kate in Carolina Blue, in Carmichael. Adding her to the team we have now. And the ladies are going to be returning next year. Man, I can't wait. This year's not over for the women. So, women's basketball is still going strong. Again, we'll talk about it in a little bit. Still going strong. Season's not over yet. That's a spoiler for you. If you haven't been paying attention, which I'm sure you have, if you're keeping up with Carolina, you know the NCAA tournament was going on. We played the first 2 rounds in Chapel Hill this past weekend. So, again, can't wait to get Kate in Chapel Hill and get her on the court. And gymnastics. So, leading into the ACC championships, they did announce the All-ACC teams. We did land 3 gymnasts on the All-ACC team. And what they do is it's athletes for the team is made up of athletes in each of the events. So you've got 5 or 6 that come from each event, being the vault, the bars, the beam, and the floor exercise. So we had JoJo Valahovic, Kaya Forbes both check in and earn honors for the vault on all ACC gymnastics team. And then on floor, actually, I'm sorry, on beam, we also had JoJo get all ACC honors for the beam. And then freshman Sydney Seabrooks got all ACC gymnastics honors for floor exercise. So congrats to them. Strong seasons for them. Like I said, gymnastics was a little iffy this year. We had some good scores, had some really good scores in meets where we went against higher ranked teams, so those scores were better. But our scores that we had were nothing to sneeze at. They were really good scores to be proud of. Up and down, but again, the future's there. JoJo's only a sophomore this year. Sydney's only a freshman. We're going to lose some folks, the Gwen Finks of the world that have meant so much to the program. But Coach Durante, they've got it. We're getting athletes in, and hopefully it's up, onward and upward, as you say, for the program. I believe, yes, the last of kind of the weekly honors, things like that, comes from the world of men's lacrosse. The ACC men's lacrosse weekly players of the week were named, and Carolina swept them. So, we talked about last week, had the big 10-8 win previous week over 9th ranked Penn State when we were ranked number 6. Obviously, like I said, we jumped up to 5 in the polls. So coaches obviously were impressed by the win over a very good and a top 10 Penn State team. Bumped us up in the rankings one spot, and on the strength of the play of some of these guys, we get the honors. So from an offensive standpoint, offensive player of the week, Anthony Rayo got offensive player of the week for ACC men's lacrosse. ACC men's lacrosse defensive player of the week honors went to Leif Hagerup. So congrats Anthony, congrats Leif on those. I said, I really do think, and I've been saying it every week, I really do think this is our best men's lacrosse team in a few years. So I really, really stick to I said it on another show when I was a guest on another show a month or so ago now, and I was asked what teams I thought in the spring for Olympic sports had shots at titles. Men's lacrosse is one that I listed, and I listed a few because I think we have shots in several things. It's the baseballs of the world, which I still think we have a shot at Omaha. Obviously women's lacrosse, men's lacrosse, I think is right there. Women's tennis has got the shot as far as I'm concerned. So we'll see how it all pans out. And I'm going to be here talking about it as it goes. But I just reiterating how I think the men's lacrosse team this year that we've got is a darn good one. So for competition for this week, Wednesday wrapped up. We had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Actually, no, I take that back. This was women's golf out in Hawaii at the Dr. Donis Thompson Invitational in Oahu, right? Yeah. It was a 2-day tournament. And so men's and women's golf sometimes, you'll get the tournaments are 52 hole tournaments or 54, 3 hole tournaments, 3-round tournaments. So, 18. So you'll get 54 holes. Sorry. Quick math in my head. I wasn't a math major. I majored in English. A lot of times you'll get 3 days and a round a day. Occasionally you get the tournaments where they'll do the first and second day, not counting in weather, because sometimes you'll get rounds moved up and you'll get it compressed because of weather. Sometimes it's just scheduled for rounds 1 and 2 to be on the first day, then day 2 gets the third round. This was the case on that. And it's also going to be the case for men's golf is going to be action this coming week. Another preview, but it's a 2-day. Theirs is a 2-day deal too. So 2 of those back to back. remember I did talk about we moved up to 12th in the polls. So we started out the tournament ranking 13th and then moved up to 12th, and the new rankings came out before the tournament even ended. Those are the breaks. We actually finished tied for second in the tournament. Finished tied for second. So, just another strong outing. Another strong outing by women's golf, doing a really good job. Over the last couple of years, really have been strong. Same thing for men's golf. Men's golf has been strong the last couple of years too, and they don't show any signs of slowing down this season. As we're talking about things, we've been talking about, you remember, if you go back and remember what I've talked about, we're talking about a few tournament wins here and there, some top 5 finishes in tournaments. The team that won this particular tournament, USC, Southern Cal USC, the real USC, Southern Cal, actually won this particular tournament in Oahu, and they're number 2 in the country, I believe. So, and then we finished tied with Arizona State. We were led by Megan Stryker. She actually finished tied for 3rd in the individual standings. Megan's 10th career top 5 finish. So, kudos to the women's golf. Keep it rolling, y'all, and keep up the good work. Now we get into the little bit of the NCAA championship stuff that I was talking about. That really kind of was the order of the day, so to speak, or the order of the week. I guess is the better way to put it. Women's NCAA Women's Swimming and Diving Championships kicked off on Wednesday. They actually ran Wednesday through Saturday, excuse me. So we'll run through those all together. But on Wednesday, few things started on Wednesday. A few events that we had people participating in. We got a top 20 finish. Lily Reeder in the 1650 freestyle. Her time was also a personal best time, and it was a number 5 all-time time for UNC. So, good strong swim in that event in the NCAA's. And then the UNC, the 200 medley relay team came in 21st. So that closed out our day 1 action. And then we turned the page to day 2. Got a couple top 15 finishes out of that. So we had Mary McCauley. Mary McCauley finished 15th in the 400 individual medley, which also earned her honorable mention All-American honors. And then 14th place finish in the 1 meter springboard diving for Sophia Knight, also earned her All-America honors with that. And then in the 100 breast, Samantha Arman finished tied for 21st. And in the 200 freestyle relay, we had a 26th place finish for our team. But we did have the leadoff leg. Excuse me. Cameron Meskel swam the leadoff leg, and she actually swam that in the number 8 all-time time for UNC. So number 8 all-time school time for that. So good job there. I think did I mention Mary's? Mary's 400 individual medley was also a personal best time for her, and it was a school record. So, congrats to them, to Mary and to Cameron on getting their scores in the record books for Carolina. So, turn the page to Friday, day 3. Hunter back had the 23rd finish for Sophia Fry, 27th for Emma Karam, 31st place finish for Samantha Arman in the 200 breast. A 400 medley relay team came in 14th, and that team earned themselves honorable mention All-American honors. That team's made up of Sophia Fry, Samantha Arman, Mary McCauley, Cameron Meskel. So great job there. Great job for them there, getting honorable mention All-American honors. And then 3 meter springboard diving, Sophia Knight came in 28th on that one. A little surprised by that one. By that one. She's generally been better than that. But she gets another shot at it day 4, which we're going to talk about now. Day 4, final day of the NCAA Women's Swimming and Diving Championships. Mary McCauley got a 16th place finish in the 200 individual medley. Did that earn her All-American honors? Yes, it did. I was trying to think. It's the top. It's 16 goes. So yeah, honorable mention All-American for 16th place finish. 200 butterfly saw Taylor Bloom finish 15th with a personal best time and a 6th all-time time at Carolina. Then Mary McCauley comes in 30th. Taylor Bloom, for that 15th place finish, earned herself honorable mention All-American honors. Congrats on that to Taylor, as well as to Mary before. 200 backstroke. 11th place finish for Sophia Fry with a personal best time and a school record time. Carolina record time for the 200 backstroke. 17th place finish in the same event for Emma Karam with a personal best time and a 4th all-time Carolina time on that one. So Sophia's 11th place finish gets her honorable mention All-American honors there. And then finally, the last Tar Heel to place, or the last Tar Heel in an event for the NCAA championships in the platform diving, Sophia Knight comes home 6th. So that was more of what I was expecting from Sophia. Like I said, she's generally strong with ACCs and NCAAs. You know, she's got big shoes to fill. I've talked about it. She's got big shoes to fill coming in diving. When you follow somebody, when you've got to follow somebody like Aranza Vasquez, I mean, it's, you know, again, Patterson medal winner, NCAA, multi-time NCAA and ACC champion, you know, dives for the Mexican national team as well. So congrats. The team actually comes home finished 24th. So when all is said and done and scores are tabulated, women's swimming and diving finishes 24th in NCAA championships. That closes the book on women's swimming and diving for this season, for this year. Congrats to them for all the hard work, all the effort, you know, the results there, you know, always proud of the teams. I like to say it, you know, always proud of the effort when the season comes to end for teams. So thank you to them, everything they do, everything they've done. And again, looking forward to being able to talk about them next season on here. So next up, NCAA championships yet again for wrestling. They took place Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. The NCAA championships for wrestling did in Cleveland, Ohio. Remember, we had 6 wrestlers qualified. Our highest seeded wrestler, we ranged from a 9th seed to a 30th seed. High seeded wrestler was Bryce Hepner. Incidentally, Bryce was the only one that actually won. Won and advanced to the quarterfinals. We had other wrestlers, all the other wrestlers, you know, lost their first matches, went into the and wound up going into consolation brackets. So after day 1, we had Bryce still alive and advanced to the quarters, and then after dropping their opening matches, and then getting to the consolations, Kyson Turakina, Luke Simcox, Jake Daly all got decision wins in their opening consolation match, which advanced them to day 2. Laird Root got a consolation decision, but then dropped his next match to ended his tournament there at 1 and 2. Same thing happened for Colin Kerrigan. Actually, he fell back to back. So, you know, his tournament ended on day 1 as well. Colin was one of those guys that was kind of surprised. He was a surprise. He was one of the guys. Like, remember I talked about at the beginning of the season. I think if you remember back that far, we had a few injuries. We had an injury at 141, and we had an injury at 174. That 141 Luke Simcox just came in really nicely, but Josh Ogunsanya that we lost at 174 due to injury had been a national qualifier, NCAA qualifier last season. So, we messed around a little bit through some duels and through some of these tournaments, so invitational tournaments and opens that guys wrestled in to kind of come up. That's what Coach Cole used to come up with really what the starts were, the lineup was going to be, especially when it got around to the 174 area. So, but Colin did, ended his first national tournament, NCAA tournament, not the way he wanted to for sure, but you can't say enough about how strong Colin really did wrestle this year. I felt like anyway, he built himself. He came in the 27 seed, and actually, and I will call out, his first match was against the 6 seed, and it was Maddie Singleton from State. And Maddie had just last weekend won the ACC championship at 174. He also did that the previous year. So Maddie was a back-to-back reigning ACC champion. And Colin actually took him to tiebreakers and lost 2-1 in tiebreakers. So that says worlds about how Colin's done. So again, I won't harp anymore on that. But then, like I said, that closes on day on day 1. We roll into day 2, still alive in the championship bracket, still alive in the championship rounds. In the quarterfinals, Bryce had to take on the number 1 ranked, number 1 seeded 165-pounder from Penn State, the powerhouse Penn State, who, yes, spoiler alert, won another NCAA championship. That's just what they do up there. Cale Sanderson, powerhouse program. Cale Sanderson was a powerhouse college wrestler, undefeated college wrestler in his career. If you don't know Cale Sanderson's story, look him up. Heck of a wrestler in college himself. Then turns around and he's got, the Penn State program is just, they're just so strong. Envious of how well they do. Bryce lost a 6-0 decision there. So that dropped him down in the constellations, gave him a chance to keep going. Then we get the constellation round 2s. For the 3 guys that for Kyson, Luke, and Jake that wrestled their way into the second day of constellations, the round 2 of constellations. Unfortunately, all 3 of them, their opponents in constellation round 2 on Friday were higher seeded opponents, and they all dropped, regular decisions. So, 7-2 for Kyson. He faced the number 13 guy from Iowa State. Luke faced the number 11 guy from Penn, lost a 7-3 decision. Jake faced the number 16 guy from Lehigh, lost a 9-4 decision. So again, their tournaments ended on Friday, not the way they wanted to. Kyson came in as a grad student from Iowa State, did a really, really good job at 125 after, we had Spencer Moore transferred to Illinois. Kyson really did. He came in and did a really good job. I felt like all year, one of the guys that you could almost always count on. Luke and Jake, I've talked about them before. Luke and Jake did fantastic jobs this year. Really showed themselves to be threats in the future, and I cannot wait for another year and see what they look like. I can't wait. So Bryce Hepner's still alive, though. Bryce is still alive, still fighting. So Bryce's constellation round 4 in the evening, he actually gets a 1-0 decision over the number 11 seeded guy from Northern Iowa. Constellation round 5, though, he's facing number 4 guy from Arizona State, Bryce's 9 seed. Drops a 2-0 decision, but he is still, he's still alive. The way it all factors out, he comes back. He comes back basically and wrestles on Saturday for 7th place. He earned All-American honors. His finish, getting to where he did, earned him a top 8, and that's considered podium. And how they consider it in wrestling is considered a podium finish. It gets him All-American honors for that. But also noteworthy, he's the first 165-pound Tar Heel since Ethan Ramos in 2015 to get that podium finish. Also, it's helped Carolina post a podium finisher now for 8th straight NCAA tournament. So not our strongest year this year with guys advancing and everything like that, but we still are able to maintain, on the high end. On the high end, we were still getting there. Then come on Saturday morning in those matches, Bryce goes up against a high school teammate of his, actually, number 16 from Ohio State, Patty Gallagher. Bryce also, I've talked about it before, I'm sure. Bryce is a grad student transfer for us here this year, came to us from Ohio State. So he gets a former high school teammate and a former college teammate, and actually gets a 9-1 major decision, gets him 7th place. Again, like I said, first 165 to get to that since 2015 for Carolina. Keeps that podium finisher streak alive at 8 straight. Congrats to the wrestling team. Like I said, it's a rebuild. I've talked about it. Ups and downs. I felt like against the higher ranked teams, higher ranked teams on our schedule, especially in the ACC, we just didn't fare as well as I thought we probably should or could. But when you step back and look at it, it was really always going to be rebuilding season this year, so to speak. Running a lot of guys out there that are freshmen and redshirt freshmen. That's experience that's just going to pay off down the road. And we got a strong class coming in. We got some red shirts from this past year, redshirt freshmen, guys that redshirted this year as freshmen that are going to give the upperclassmen runs for their money and maybe even actually win spots over them. So the future's bright. I can't wait to get back at it. I've always said wrestling is my favorite sport. It's what I did growing up through junior high and high school. I love it. So just sad to see another season go. Glad I got to be there and watch them along the way and watch some of these guys grow up. Can't wait to see what they do next year. So Thursday, more NCAA tournament action. More NCAA tournament action. I think the next two things are, our next two pieces of competition we're going to talk about are NCAA tournament action, and then we go to kind of some regular stuff and an ACC tournament or championship thrown in there. But so Thursday started the NCAA fencing championships. Remember, we had a few going out there. Freshman Dagny Johnson from the women's side has really had a really good debut season. She finished the first day in 4th. Got 12 wins. Yeah, 12 wins. Carolina, we were sitting at 17th of the team there as a women's team. So got good going there for her. And then, but something that maybe didn't end as well as far as the results go, wins and losses, but we're very strong. Maria Kapalua battled all day, women's a pay. Most of her bouts, I think when I was seeing what I read, most of her bouts actually ended up with her being within 1 score of her opponent. So she fought really, really hard, didn't get the end result on it, but really, really showed out and fought. And, she's done that all year. She's done it all year. Friday turns around. We get the women finishing up. The men kicking off. We got the individuals and the team stuff, going on each side has the individual stuff. Then you got, like any tournament, I mean, any sport like this, when it comes to the swimming and divings and the tracks and the things, when you have that, you have separate events, but it does combine to the team. So you have shots at individual titles, you have shots at team titles. Dagny earned her 2nd team All-American honors when she finished the first day in 6th. Best finish of any freshman in women's saber. closed the championship with 15 total wins and had what's that? The stat I saw, making sure I got it right. 4 straight women's saber All-Americans now. So again, the fencing program, it's something you don't hear about, but as I've talked about it, we had ACC champions. We had ACC champions on the men's side. We had we had an NCAA regional champion on the men's side. But then you had women like from the women's contingent on the team, Dagny Johnson, Maria Kapalua, having strong finishes from women. They had tough shoes to fill from the likes of Sophia Kovacs from last year, though, who was always in the running for stuff. Men's team competition kicked off, and we had Peter Bruck, Eldon Wood, and Youssef Shamel going there. Yep, and they did what they do. They did what they do. They had they took place on Saturday. Going into Saturday, team was in 6th place. Strong starts. Youssef Shamel, remember, freshman. He's the ACC champion I talked about. He's the NCAA regional champion. I've mentioned it during the season. He had some international competition where he did really well. ACC honors and things like that. He did receive for his performances along the way. So what we're going to get, and I'm going to save the best for last on this one, but Peter Bruck on men's full ties the best finish for a Carolina men's full fencer in NCAA championship history. Man, Peter's work, what can you say? What can you say? Bronze medalist there, 3rd place finish for Peter on that. And then you roll into Youssef Shamel. And what, when it comes to men's pay, like I said, what else can you say about the guy? But Carolina, add it to however you keep score of it, keep track of it for team championships, individual championships. We got a new individual national champion. Youssef Shamel, men's pay individual national champion. So, even in something like fencing, national championships, it's just what we do. What can you say? That, one of those things that when I actually saw it today, was that baseball or was that softball when that happened? I was at baseball when that happened. I think I was at baseball when that happened. I can't. My time is the baseball game, and we'll talk about it tune in on Friday morning or on Friday for the Full Count Carolina. We didn't record one last week because we did. If you missed my post on socials, if you follow me on X, I don't think it was anywhere else, but we decided to do a live post game reaction after the basketball debacle, the men's basketball debacle Thursday night. So we recorded a live basketball post reaction on that, which took like an hour and a half, and I don't think we finished till midnight. And we did it live, which we don't do a lot of very often. A lot of our stuff is recorded and put out the next day or a little bit later, whatever. But we were all fit to be tied a little bit. Even got Nathan back on there, the retired Nathan got on there and actually chipped in some opinion and thought on that. But so the men's team finishes, though, wrapping up the fencing. Men's team actually finished 7th as a team. And that's the first ever men's, our first ever men's national championship shot. And we finished 7th. So that's good stuff. Good stuff. Good season. Good season. I've really enjoyed getting into fencing more. Like I said, the last few years, I especially just really started keeping up with, I would go to sports and things like that, but actually keeping up with them and putting things out on social media about it. I didn't do that really until the last few years, I don't think. Fencing is one of the ones that I've really enjoyed learning more about and talking about. And it just helps that we actually are successful. So Friday rolls around. We got some stuff going on. Let's do women's basketball next. NCAA tournament, first and second round action in Carmichael. Got to be there for most of Friday before I went to baseball. Baseball was doing a trading card giveaway. My daughter did not want to miss the trading cards, so we did leave. We did actually leave in the third quarter, but we were doing well and handling it. Took on the we came in. Remember, we talked about last week. Came in as the 4 seed. Took on the 13th seeded Western Illinois Leathernecks, and their mascots is like big buff yellow bulldog. The mascot was jacked. It's obviously like a Ramses, but they really made sure to jack the arms. Freaking made Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner jealous probably with how big the arms they made this bulldog mascot costume be. So anyway, roll in there. It was actually close for a little bit. I was really surprised. Came out a little flat. I felt like shots weren't necessarily falling, but really then just kind of second quarter they gained momentum. So Western Illinois was going. They had a nice little crowd contingent right on the bleachers across from their bench. And nice little contingent there going that was actually pretty loud. But we were able to take care of business. Come our way with the relatively easy in the end 82-51 win. Free throw shooting was down. I was nudging the guy beside me. I think he was a Carolina fan. He didn't have on Carolina stuff, but he was cheering for Carolina. But his wife had on like Maryland, and Maryland was in the first game. They're the 5 seed. They played in the first game. They won their game. We won our game, which gives us puts us on a collision course, obviously for Sunday, with our old ACC nemesis foe, the Maryland Terrapins. But before we get there, like I said, free throw shooting wasn't good in this one. We've been up and down. I've called it out. We've lost some games because of free throw shooting this year. March is when you get into the tougher opponents in March. Nothing against Western Illinois, but they were just outmanned, outgunned, quite honestly. They put up a really good effort for the first little bit, I thought. We were down. We were up 14 at half. Really should have been more. Came out in the third quarter, we outscored them by 11. So it really kind of extended out from there, and that's how you wind up with a 31-point win. Free throw shooting was only 63% though. So obviously that's got to get better. That obviously has to get better. We talked about it, but rolling on to let me call out the leading scores at least. Nyla Harris had 17, had a pretty good attack. We had 4 double figures. Nyla Harris 17, Laney Grant 15, India Navarre 11, and Nyla Brooks with 14. Layla Ho just off the double figure scoring. She had 9. Nyla Harris double, 12 rebounds. 8 of those rebounds were on the offensive glass. That's big time. And like I said, we were missing some shots for a little bit, so we were missing some shots for a little bit. So she had a chance to get that, but good effort there. Yeah, survive in advance. That's what they call it, right? So rolling on Sunday, get the 5th seeded Maryland Terrapins again. Friendly confines of Carmichael. I still like to call it auditorium. It's arena now officially, but I still like to call it auditorium. Come in, and it's a battle. It's a battle, which you would expect it to be. Up at half, we were up at half. Then that third quarter, I think what we were up at half, 5, 4, 9 at half. Come into the third after the third quarter though, we're tied. Maryland, we didn't score very much in the third quarter. We only scored 8 points in the third quarter. Maryland scored 17, not that many either, but actually that was on par because they were 17-16, 17-16. Interesting pattern there. I just happened to notice that for Maryland scoring in the 4 quarters. But yeah, the third quarter, they got that, they pulled it back up, pulled back within, and wound up, we wound up having to battle them. Obviously, fourth quarter, coming in the fourth quarter tied, we're able to pull away. We were able to pull away and get a 74-66 win to advance to the Sweet 16. That's going to be in Fort Worth. And we are going to be taking on an opponent that we do not know yet. Going tomorrow, number 1 seed UConn, number 9 seed Syracuse are going to play, and we get the winner in the Sweet 16 in Fort Worth. Upsets happen. Maybe Syracuse takes them out. We get a lower rated team. Sometimes be careful what you wish for. But then again, you got the other option is the 1 seed of UConn Huskies staring at you. So we'll see what happens. But hey, still dancing in March. You just got to get it done. And I will tell you, every bit I say for Carolina on free throws, Maryland gave that game away on the free throw line. They really did. They shot 54.8% down the stretch. Yeah, I mean, that's just 14 free throws. They lost by 8. That was the same thing the other night for Carolina. It was the same thing the other night against VCU for the men. We lost. Boy, we lost by like 8, didn't we? And whatever. No, my brain's not working. No, we lose that, and we missed enough free throws that easily made up for it. You got to watch it. I said it. Free throws this time of year, it's magnified. That stuff is magnified, and it'll get you. And it got Maryland. Quite honestly, it got Maryland. Like I said, this 14 free throws lost by 8 points. Luckily, we were on the good end of that. We were 70%, so a little better. I like 70. 75 is really where I like to see the floor as far as team goes. But, we get the win. Didn't shoot any in the third quarter. Shot close to 50% for the game. Held them under 33%, actually 32.4. So did a great job there as far as them. Finished up, we had 4 double figures. No double doubles this time. And we got offense. Oh, yeah, crap. I just realized that. We got killed on the offensive glass. Yeah, so Maryland did things right. They did things right on the on some big things right, and that magnifies even more their free throw percentage and what they're quite frankly lost in the game. They had 21 offensive rebounds to our 9. We had 31 on the defensive side to their 20. We wound up -1 on the rebounding margin, but to wind up -1 on the rebounding margin when you are -12 on the offensive glass, yeah. I mean, Thank you, Maryland, for missing your free throws. I mean, I'll say we got lucky in that respect, if I'm going to be honest with you. But we did have some good games, good scoring game. Had 2 20-point games from the people that I've kind of come to expect it from. 21 points for Elena Arnasalo, 20 points for Lainey Grant, 14 for Nyla Harris, 11 for Indiana Barr. The same old characters, cast of characters, usual suspects. We've seen them all year. We've talked about them all year. High rebounding. We had 8 for Nyla Brooks. We had 8 for Nyla Harris. Yeah, Nyla squared. 8 and 8. 2 8 rebound games for them. So we march on. So congrats to Coach Banghart and the team for getting out of the first weekend. Something the men couldn't do, unfortunately. And I'm not going to say anything else about it. I probably shouldn't have even said that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that as a shot. That's just, there's still frustration there. But again, Fort Worth coming up on, like I said, it's TBD, and it's going to be Friday, though. So game time and television designations will be announced after the second round games finish up tomorrow. again, we get either number 1 seed UConn or the number 9 seed Syracuse. So may the best team win, and we'll take what we get. Rolling into some men's tennis now, and we just have we don't have a whole bunch left. We've got a few things. Thank y'all for sticking with me if you're still here. Men's tennis. Got a couple ranked opponents this week. Couple opponents ranked higher than us. Started out Friday, both of them in Chapel Hill, friendly confines of the CUNY Tennis Center. Remember, our men's team is now sitting at number 69 ranked. Friday, we came and took on the number 38 Clemson Tigers came to town. We fell behind, lost the doubles point. Yes, lost the doubles point. Noteworthy on that one, I talked about how Rowan Jones and Anthony Wright had climbed themselves up to the 20th ranked doubles team. They take a 7-5 L to the number 71 ranked doubles team for Clemson. We did get a win on doubles from Chris Shue and Niels Rachu. So good on that one. But then Ian Mayu and Logan Zapp take a 7-6 loss. So we got to come from behind. Lost a doubles point. And you know what? I guess frustrated from last week off that using that as some fuel as I guess you could say. Went ahead and took care of business. Went ahead and took care of business. Niels Rachu got a win. Konstantinos Trikoris got a win. Ian Mayu got a win. And the clincher came from Case Schinner. Rowan Jones' match did not finish. Chris Shue's match did not finish. Chris was tied. Clemson only had one. Yeah, Clemson only had actually one ranked singles player going, and that was Chris Shue was against him, and that was an unfinished match. They were tied one set apiece. So, but again, we come back after dropping 2 last week. One of those we really, like I said, you can't lose stuff like that, and we get a number 38 opponent coming into Chapel Hill, and we take care of business. So I'm gonna tell you when I'm disappointed we lose, but I'm gonna give it right back and give the respect and the congrats and the kudos right back when you win. And they obviously used last week and like I said, used it as motivation, and had a good showing. Come in again, another ranked opponent comes into the CUNY Tennis Center. This time a little lower ranked, but still ranked ahead of us. 52nd, 5-2 ranked Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Carolina actually jumped out to a 3-0 lead. Then Clemson comes back. Clemson gets 2 on us. And then once again, Case Schinner clinches the whole deal, closes the match out, gets the 4th win for Carolina, and it stops there. 4-2 win, second straight win, ranked win ahead of us, both of these. That's momentum, folks. That's momentum. That's this team playing better. I like to see it. I'm happy. I'm happy because I was not happy after last week after losing. I started losing a little bit of faith, and if you follow me around on social media, it's been said a lot by other people. I don't say it myself. I've been called that, Mr. Positivity, and probably the most positive Carolina fan on the app. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Not for me to say, but I was not. I was a little down on men's tennis last week. I knew they weren't going to give up, but I was down, and they came back. Like I said, they came back. We got the singles, got the doubles point. Rowan and Anthony bounced back, got their win. Chris and Niels come get their win. Ian and Logan were down 5-4, but theirs went unfinished. How'd the order go? just the order on this. So Ian gets a win, the first win in singles. Niels gets a win. That, like I said, we jumped out the 3-0 lead, and then you get Chris Shue taking a loss. Number 4, Constantinos takes a loss, but then Case comes back, and 2 matches this weekend, 2 ranked opponents, 2 wins. Case clinches them both on the singles end of things, and that's called a winning streak, folks. That's called a winning streak, 2-0. I'll take it. I will absolutely take it. And we got some action coming up this weekend. We got some men's tennis action coming up this coming weekend that I'll get to. We got a couple going. Yeah. Hey, women are back in action too. Spoiler alert. Women are back in action too. So spoiler alert on that. Good week for men's tennis. Needed to see it. Needed the bounce back. Congrats. Congrats to the guys for digging down and getting it done. Gymnastics, talked about it. Seedings came out on Monday. Talked about how the finals. I talked about how the standings and everything go. And did it go chalk? Did it? Let me turn back to my notes. It did not go chalk. Oh, okay. So you remember coming in. Well, like I said, let me do this first. Okay, so we paired up with Pitt. We paired up with Pitt because we were one of the 2 lowest seeds in the first session. We came out with a 196.025 score. When I saw that, I was like, okay, well, we're not going to finish in last, but that score is usually not going to be good enough to get you anywhere. And it wasn't. It wasn't in the long run. It wasn't in the long run. But the women have gone strong all year, and they battled all year. They never gave up. The effort's always been there. NCAA regionals are coming up. I'll lay out how it finished. It did, like I said, it did not go chalk. Final standings. Clemson brings home the ACC championship with a 197.1. They came in seeded 3rd. Stanford comes in 2nd, just 0.025 behind them. Stanford came in as the top seed. Cal came in 2nd. They came in as the 2nd seed. They finished 3rd with a 196.9. State, Carolina, and Pitt all then finished where they came in seeded 4, 5, 6. State had a 196.5. Again, like I said, we had a 196.025. As soon as I saw the score in, I knew that it wasn't going to turn out a win for us. But, the effort was there. The effort was there. I'm not gonna fault them anything. We didn't have like the woeful one bad rotation like we did last week. That cost us a couple wins in a try meet, honestly. But and then Pitt came in 6th, finishing up, bringing up the rear in last with a 194.450. So, like I said, we've got you talked about it. We've talked about it. We talked about the All ACC performers we had. Coming out of that, though, out of the All ACC championship team that comes from this event, Gwen Fink got honors, earned All ACC championship team honors on the beam. JoJo Valahovic earned them on the vault. So strong performances, obviously, by them for their recognition. And we turn the page. NCAA regional championships are coming up, not this coming week, but the 1st through the 5th. I think I'd said that's what I thought it was. It is on my paper, on my notes. Flip for here. It is April 4th, or April 1st through April 5th. We'll see how that shakes for Carolina. What the future holds there. So of the, I think that's the last. It is. Well, women's basketball. Women's basketball now in the NCAA tournament, and gymnastics are the last 2 still going, or at the moment are the last 2 still alive. from the winter season. And yeah, so they'll close out and we'll have a little bit less to talk about. And these will be a little bit shorter. And I need to find out a way to make them shorter, maybe, so they're not so long. Some of y'all's attention spans might not last, and you might tune out on some of it and stop watching it because I talk so much. Trying to figure that out. If there's something I'm doing wrong, if there's something I could do better on that, hit me with the comment. If you follow me on social media, on Twitter, hit me with a DM and tell me if you don't want to put in the comments on here, on YouTube for people to see. Let me know. Always open to constructive criticism, trying to get better, trying to make this better, more useful for people. The more useful, the better, right? Because again, the reason I do it is because I love Carolina and I love everything about Carolina. I love all the sports, and I want people to maybe get into them a little more if they're not. Be knowledgeable of them. Be knowledgeable about them. Know what's going on. Know the athletes' names. If somebody says, you couldn't name anybody past, you're a Carolina fan, you couldn't name anybody past men's basketball or football team or whatever, or players on those teams. You don't know anybody else. And well, if you listen to me talk, hey, you can name some other people because I talk about plenty of the other people for the other sports. So again, I'm trying to get people, into it like I'm into it, to some degree. That's all. That's the only reason I do it, That's the only reason I do it, because I like talking about it. I like the people getting into it. We did have a single contest action from men's lacrosse and women's lacrosse. Wasn't intended to be that way. If you remember the schedule last week when I talked about what was coming up, we were scheduled to host, women's lacrosse was scheduled to host Florida on Tuesday in Chapel Hill. If you were around this area, you knew that we had some, and I talked about it. I think I even said it. I think I even made the comment at the end of the show last week about people staying safe. We had the prediction from a lot of severe weather, possible tornadoes and things like that luckily never really materialized. We had some wind gusts, and you could see the trees going. But the storms themselves, the severity never really did anything. Obviously, we had a tornado watch, never hit a warning. So we got out really lucky on that, but it did cause the cancellation of the women's lacrosse game against Florida on Tuesday, because Florida was able to get here. Both schools are working to try to get a makeup date. We'll talk about it if they get it rescheduled. I'll make sure I tell everybody and let y'all know in a coming episode once it's done. But we did get the opportunity to take on another ranked opponent, and Florida was ranked too. Florida would have been a ranked opponent. We get the opportunity on Saturday. Boston College, number 16 ranked Boston College women's lacrosse team, comes into Chapel Hill, and then they leave with a 21-12 loss. You love to see it. And I've talked about Chloe Humphrey a lot. And I made the comment after one of the games the game last week, that she didn't have a hat trick in that game, and that was only the 5th in her 30-game career at Carolina that she did not have a hat trick. And then I guess she took that personally. Not really. She didn't listen. She doesn't listen to me. She doesn't listen to me, or this show, I'm sure. But she took it personally because she didn't have it, and she wanted to put an end to it, obviously. And she wound up scoring 8 goals and had 3 assists. So that's 11 points. That's the 31st straight victory for Carolina. That is obviously, it's our school record. Is it? Yeah, that's right. The third, yeah, it is. I'm sorry, I'm reading back on my notes. I got to look back down at my notes. 31 game winning streak now, longest in the nation, longest in program history. It's tied for 5th longest in NCAA history right now. In addition to that monster 8-goal, 3-assist game from Chloe, Addison Patillo matched her career high, had 5 goals. Even Grilly, new career high, 4 goals. Caroline Godin, season high, 3 assists. So good work being done there. It's Addison's 9th hat trick of her career, actually. 26th hat trick of 31 career games now for Chloe. So the number still stays at 5 that she hasn't had. 15th career game for Chloe Humphrey with at least 5 goals. 5th career game with 3 or more assists. Eva's 5th hat trick of her career, and with that career high 4 goals for her. And then we'll talk about it. But then women's lacrosse is going to be back in action in the midweek this coming week. I'll get to it, but I think that's the only women's lacrosse this week. Yeah. No, it's not. They got 2 this coming week. Yeah, they got 2 this coming week. Sorry. So we'll talk about that, though. Then men's lacrosse. Let's get them. We had 1 men's lacrosse, and then we had the track and field season opener, which I made note. If you remember, last week I said we had a week to go or whatever it was, and like 9 days to go or something when I recorded last week, 9 days as of Monday or something like that. And then all of a sudden it popped up Monday. They announced that on Tuesday, I think it was actually. They announced on Tuesday that we were actually gonna have some of the field events going to High Point to take part in a meet in High Point. So I actually put a note on the last video that said, hey, by the way, so you don't think I'm wrong and miss this, because my countdown was this and we had something coming. They added it, and that took place Saturday. We'll get to that. We got men's lacrosse from Saturday and the track and field from Saturday. And then the only thing left will be the upcoming. So men's lacrosse coming in 5th ranked in the country, remember? Getting the Black Knights from the United States Military Academy Army coming down to Chapel Hill from West Point, New York, ranked number 19th in the country, and we send them back up there with a 12-11 loss. Moves us to 8-1 on the season, 6-0, perfect record at Dorrance this spring. The names I mention all the time. Here it goes. The names I mentioned all the time. It was a really defensive opening quarter. I think we only had 2 goals. Yeah, we led 2-1 after the first 15. Dom Petramala, Caden Harshbarger, both had the goals there. Army gets 3 in the second to take a lead, with about 5 left in the half, and then Dom gets a goal, and then Gary Merrill gets back-to-back goals. 3 seconds remaining in the half. Army scores. So we go into half-tied. Then third, we get 5 different Tar Heels get goals. We get a one goal lead going into the final frame. We get Anthony Rayo and then Caden Harshbarger each get the goals in the 4th, and that gives you the 1 goal victory. So, on just the highlights of the performance there, we had 3 goals each from Caden and Gary. Then we got 2 goals from Anthony and Dom. Owen Duffy had 3 assists, 10 saves and 5 ground balls in between the pipes for Josh Marcus. Peter Toman had led all defensemen Carolina with 3 calls turnovers. And Brady recorded 16 ground balls. Yep. So long and short of it, like I said, that gives you a 12-11 win over a top 20 Army team. So strong season continues. And it's not going to get any easier because I did not realize I missed that in my notes. Okay, I'll talk about it, but we're going to be taking on a very highly ranked opponent, as are we, of course. But in the coming week, when we get to that, we got a tough one coming up on men's lacrosse, and we'll, definitely going to be a test. Definitely going to be a test for us. Talk about it in a few. Let's finish it up though. So track and field gets the outdoor season kicked off a little earlier than normal. Sent some sent some throwers and jumper to one jumper and then throwers. Okay. Field event folks to High Point. So Friday and Saturday is when this one took place. Friday and Saturday is when it took place. So Friday, women's hammer, Gracie Bullock gets a 6th place finish. Men's hammer, Miles Scott 7th. Women's javelin, Spencer Young with a 5th. Men's high jump, Kyle Archie comes in 2nd on Friday. Flip the page to Saturday. Saturday sees a win in the women's pole vault V from Vivian Stowe. B as in boy, not V as in Vivian. I'm getting tired. Women's pole vault B, Vivian Stovall gets a win, 1st place finish. Men's pole vault, 9th place finish for Nick Pennington. Men's shot put, Jason Noel gets 13th. Men's discus, Adam Smith, 2nd place finish. And then women's discus rounding out the event for Carolina, Mackenzie Money with a 4th, Skylar Bowman with a 7th. So, and then track and field, the actual event, like the full event that was initially supposed to be the first one, is coming up in the upcoming schedule, which I am going to bring to you now. And then we're done. I'm recording this later on Monday than I normally do because I actually caught was able to catch some of the softball game, and I caught baseball today for the most part because my daughter's volleyball practice, which she had to have a tournament this weekend, but her practice for Sunday got canceled because her coaches were at another tournament because they do other teams too in our club. Both of them have 2 teams. Our head coach is a head coach for 2 teams. Our assistant is an assistant for 2 different teams. And so they just happened to be in tournament action this week, and they could not, we didn't have, and sometimes we have other coaches that can run practice, but we didn't have any other coaches at the same site because we practice in different sites. Our club doesn't have our own facility. I hope we could. I wish we could. I get jealous when I go to other places and we play at tournaments sometimes at other clubs' facilities. And sometimes we play at schools. Sometimes we play in like convention centers and sports centers, sports complexes for places. But sometimes some of the smaller Carolina region events we go to are in clubs, another club's facility. And I start getting jealous because it's so nice. And yet we're going to different schools. All our teams are in different schools, basically in the Durham area, in this Durham, North Carolina area, at different schools with practicing. So, goals. But yeah, so I actually we caught most of baseball. I had to do soundboard for church this morning, so I couldn't get to baseball at the very beginning. We got there in like the 2nd inning. And the baseball game was a thriller. Tune in to Full Count Carolina on Friday, and you'll hear about it. My thoughts and Alan's thoughts, because Alan was there this week. Alan was there this week. I'll let him talk about it. I won't spoil it, but he doesn't make a lot because he's down in South Carolina, so he's like 3 hours away. So he didn't get up here for a lot of stuff. Wife and a couple kids and all that. But he was here. Got to see him at an event, which is cool. Also got to see him at a football game earlier in the year. These are the only 2 times I've ever actually met Alan in person. So it was always cool to do that, though. But then wound up then catching a little bit of the softball game before I had to leave because my daughter had something else going on tonight. And then it took me a little bit because I had to finish taking notes because yesterday was so busy I didn't take any notes off of yesterday's action. And I obviously there wasn't much today to talk about or action on today that I had to catch up on. But like Friday action, I had to take some more notes. And then Saturday stuff, I had to take some more notes. So it took me a little bit longer. You don't know the difference because you don't know when I'm recording this. I'm just telling you it's a little later, little later than normal on a Sunday night. And but then anyway, I digress. I will go on a tangent in a second if you let me. So you gotta watch me. Monday, let's go. Monday, the 23rd, men's golf is going to be down in Palm City, Florida, in a 2-day event. The Valspar Collegiate, day 1 on Monday, day 2 on Tuesday. Those are the only 2 things going on Monday and Tuesday. Then Wednesday gives us women's lacrosse against Northwestern in Chapel Hill at 6 p.m. on ESPNU, scheduled as I see it right now. Men's swimming and diving NCAA championships kick off also in Atlanta. Women's were in Atlanta. Men's are going to kick off in Atlanta as well on Wednesday. Finals action at 6 p.m. Those are supposed to be broadcast on ESPN Plus. Then Thursday, the 26th, gives us some spring women's soccer exhibition type action. This time we get UNCW in Chapel Hill on the Finley South Field at 5:30 p.m. Men's swimming and diving continues with the National NCAA Championships in Atlanta again on ESPN Plus. Prelims start at 10 a.m. Finals start at 6 p.m. The previous first outdoor track and field event does kick off on Thursday also. They are the Raleigh Relays taking place at NC State. On Friday, the 27th now, we got men's tennis against Wake Forest in Chapel Hill, 5 p.m. Women's tennis at Virginia Tech at 3 p.m. Men's swimming and diving NCAA championships will continue on Friday. I was trying to look and make sure they ended, so I knew right. Okay, yep, still going on. On Friday, again, ESPN Plus is supposed to be broadcast for that. Prelims at 10 a.m., finals at 6 p.m. Start at 6 p.m. Women's basketball, we talked about it's TBD. Will be in Fort Worth at Sweet 16 action. We'll figure out the time and the opponent after UConn and Syracuse handle their business and take care of their deal tomorrow or today, Monday. Hopefully Monday when you're seeing this. Rowing back in action. You know, getting back on the lake, getting back on the water after the really strong the first weekend. You know, like I said, saw us enter the polls. Back in action for a couple days, starting out Friday, Sunshine State Invitational, Sarasota, Florida is where that's going to take place. Outdoor track and field continuing on Friday with the Raleigh Relays at NC State. Saturday now, we got men's soccer in the Spring Carolina Cup scrimmage stuff at High Point at 6 p.m. Then we have women's lacrosse against ECU in Chapel Hill at noon. Broadcast ACC Network Extras where that's slated right now. Men's swimming and diving wraps up the NCAA championships in Atlanta. Broadcast ESPN Plus. Say it with me again. Prelims start at 10 a.m. Finals start at 6 p.m. Same as before. Rowing concludes the action for their weekend in Sarasota at the Sunshine State Invitational. Outdoor track and field concludes their meet in Raleigh at State with the Raleigh Relays on Saturday. And that flips us to Sunday with only a handful of things to go. Women's soccer against UVA at noon in Cary at the Wake Meg Soccer Park. Again, men's and women's soccer got some spring action going on, exhibition type stuff. Men's lacrosse, I mentioned it, is going to be in Severn, Maryland, 1 p.m. on Sunday to take on the number 4 ranked Harvard team, the Crimson, I believe they are. And it's going to be broadcast on Corrigan Sports Network, which I think I saw earlier this year, and I told y'all I had no idea what that was. I did look it up. I assume it's some Ivy League broadcast thing. So anyway, I probably don't look that up. But again, that's the tough one I'm talking about. So that's going to be coming in, well, provided rankings hold, because the rankings will the new rankings for men's across the US ILA rankings come out generally later on Friday afternoon. As of now, as I'm recording this, we come into it, we're 5th, Harvard's 4th. We'll see if it stays that way. Either way, it's going to be a test. It's going to be a good one. So, let's see what we got. Those are the ones you want to play. You want to play the tough teams. It's going to make you better. It's going to make you better come postseason time. Women's tennis, going up to Charlottesville to take on UVA at 1 p.m. And then rounding out the week of competition, as far as Olympic sports stuff goes, men's tennis against NC State in Chapel Hill, 1 p.m. Now, baseball and softball have got some stuff going on. Softball's got some stuff going on midweek and at home. And then midweek, all of that stuff's at home. And then, again, check out Full Count Carolina when Al and I will record it Thursday night. We'll drop it on Friday. Yeah, that's the plan anyway. And we'll talk about those. If you're interested, we'll talk about that stuff. Baseball will be at Notre Dame this weekend. So maybe I can catch some softball. I got a volleyball tournament. I've got a one-day – my daughter's got a one-day Carolina region tournament on Sunday in lovely, I believe it is, Trinity, North Carolina, at a random middle school. The Carolina region tournaments, like I said, are usually in schools or a club or a club facility. So anyway, it's the same place we were a couple weeks ago on Saturday, but it's our final Carolina region one-day tournament. And then we finished the season. Her club team finishes the season the following weekend, which is Easter weekend. We've got a huge tournament in Atlanta called Big South. That's like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday tournament for the Easter weekend. Good Friday, Saturday, and Easter Sunday. That's going to be a big one. I've never been. We haven't gone before. I've heard from friends whose daughters have played volleyball that tournament is enormous. I don't like huge crowds. That is going to be interesting. And then we had a tournament added the first weekend of May to make up for a tournament we missed in Charlotte from bad weather earlier in the season. That's going to be in Spartanburg, South Carolina. All that to say, stay tuned. I'll try to keep folks updated on social media. If my schedule changes, if we're going to drop something maybe a day later, I'll try to let folks know, just in case you're wondering. But yeah, just know I've got these next 3 weekends. I got tournaments, or my daughter has tournaments, and so I'll be there. It affects my ability to well, first of all, I can't watch games because if I'm not at the game someplace, if it's on Network Extra, I'm watching it. Some of this stuff's not, and I just have to keep up with it. I have to keep up with it through like stat broadcast and things like that, so I can keep up and make my notes and look at all of the things that are going on and box scores after the fact. But all that to say, just stay tuned. I'm not sure what the next 3 weeks are going to bring as far as my schedule is going to go for this show, but my intent is to, if I have to deliver it a day late, is to deliver it a day late and still do it. But stay tuned, and I'll keep everybody up to date on what I'm doing and what has to happen. So again, I said it before. I don't want to not be prepared. I might ramble when I am prepared because I think I take a lot of notes, along the way. But I tend to ramble sometimes too. Now, if I'm not prepared and I don't have notes, I couldn't even begin to try it. I would be worse than I am with the ums and the uhs and the knows that I watch myself back. I did it again. I watch myself back after every episode. Every one of these come out, I'll watch it back after we drop it and go, oh, that sucked. Try to figure it out and go on from there. But anyway, I digress again. Like I said, I'm King Tangent. I'm Mr. Tangent. I will go on a tangent in a second. Thank y'all. Appreciate all y'all for checking this out. If you're still here at the end, or if you skip through the end, hi, it's over now. Tell your friends. Seriously, pass it on. Tell your friends. Get the word out. Let's get Carolina fans and Tar Heel Nation excited about all these other sports at Carolina. We're so much more than the Rev sports. They have their place. Let's be honest. The main ones, men's basketball and football, are having really tough times right now. These other sports, all these other sports we talk about, either through my show here or Full Count Carolina, and we focus on the baseball and softball. These sports are having a lot better times, and they've been doing it consistently over the last several years and even before that in a lot of instances. These are the sports that people can get really excited about. We're consistently good at them. We are. There's a lot of we're just consistently good at. Get excited about them. Learn about them. Go out and check them out. If you can't get at Chapel Hill, I try to mention where the broadcasts are, but look at Go Heels. Look at the schedule on Go Heels. Look at socials on game days for each of the team accounts. They mention where stuff's broadcast. You can follow it on Stat Broadcast to do the live stats, if that. I mean, just keeping up with it, learning the names, things like that. But yeah, like I said, I digress. But tell your friends, hit the like, hit the subscribe, stay with us. Stay with us. Let me know. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't like. I always say that. Nobody ever says anything. Yeah. People are looking at it. I see the views. I see the likes. There are thumbs ups. But seriously, let me know if there's something. As long as it's constructive criticism, I don't need black would you suck. But hey, a little bit more of this. Hey, a little bit less of that. I can take it, man. Yeah, you don't get to be 52 years old and not be able to take some of that stuff. So, anyway, again, thank y'all. Enjoy it coming at y'all every week and being able to do this and talk to y'all about it. Have a great week. See you next time. And as always, go Heels.